We're back.
Hello everyone, I am Matthew Macarides.
And I am Thomas Earls, and this is Sports Night.
Our topic tonight is the 1970s sporting era.
Can you tell me something about the characteristics of the 1970s sporting era?
Well Tom, up until 1977, Australian cricket's popularity declined until Kerry Packer introduced the concept of World Series cricket to the public. Kerry Packer established this competition to be broadcasted on Channel 9. He did this for two main reasons. These were the view that cricket players were not paid sufficiently, and that Packer wanted to secure the broadcasting rights to cricket. This competition brought about the introduction of one-day international cricket, which was a radical change from the traditional Test series cricket. World Series cricket only lasted for 2 seasons. However, it had a lasting effect and revolutionised the game of cricket. Another major sporting success for Australia was the 1972 Munich Olympic Games. Australia won a total of 17 medals, 8 of these being gold. This was a remarkable success for Australian sport, with Australia coming 6th in the medal tally. However, in the 1976 Montreal Olympic Games, Australia performed poorly, only achieving 1 silver and 4 bronze medals, coming 32nd, one of the worst Australian performances. Other successes include the Australian women's netball team winning the World Championships 3 times in the 1970s. There was also an increase in interest in all codes of football, including rugby league and AFL, due to the televising of games. Finally, the Australian men's soccer team qualified for the first time in the Soccer World Cup in West Germany, which created a considerable amount of interest in the game. So Tom, what were the main influences of Britain and USA on Australia's sport during the 1970s?
Well, Matt, during the 1970s, Australian society and culture became commercialised and globalised, mainly due to the American influence. This had a profound effect on Australian sport. During the 1960s, sport in Australia was amateur, unorganised and outdated, compared to our American and British counterparts. However, during the 1970s, Australia developed a more sophisticated, professional and structured sporting system. The 1970s sporting era resulted in a movement away from the British influence and heritage towards a more Americanised sporting system. With this came the introduction of modern American sports such as basketball and baseball. There was also a combination of Americanisation and British influence on Australian sport. This could be seen in the establishment of World Series cricket. This competition was commercialised and globalised by Kerry Packer, which resulted in a highly lucrative cricket industry. Football codes in the 1970s became highly lucrative, with players and support staff vying for the highest bidder and not staying loyal to one club. Another example of an Americanised influence on Australian sport was that businesses and companies sponsoring games, players and sporting equipment. The American influence of professionalism on Australian sport led to an increase in government funding for the future development of elite Australian players, which resulted in the Australian Institute of Sport. Well, Matt, what are the impacts of sport during the 1970s that shaped Australia's identity?
Well, during the 1970s, there was a decrease in the overall fitness levels of the general population in Australia. To combat this health issue, the Victorian government started a lifestyle campaign called Life Be In It, which aimed at encouraging people to be active and healthy. This program was significant to the establishment of Australian Institute of Sport in Canberra. This greatly impacted in shaping Australia's identity, as the Life Be In It program created much interest in fitness and general well-being for Australia for decades to come. The sporting heroes of the 1970s created a sporting national identity that was based upon basic morals and values. Some of these values are mateship and having a go, which are developed through playing in a team-based environment. Another value that created a national identity was fair play on the sporting field. Cheats are now labelled in today's society as un-Australian. They are not embracing our national identity of fair play. Another lasting impact that shaped Australia's identity was the introduction of women to professional sport. It was not until the 1970s that women started to challenge the stereotypical bonds that only allowed them to play feminine sports such as netball, and began to take up sports such as football and weightlifting. Due to this, the government introduced equal opportunity laws which prevented this discrimination of women. Women in sport has increased largely since the 1970s and has shaped our national identity, showing that we are an egalitarian society.
Well, that concludes our show for tonight. Thank you and good night.